We can start, right? Good day, everyone. My name is Aremu John, and I welcome you to this section, Tag Environment, Transition, Justice, and Peacebuilding. This section is part of this ongoing second International Conference on Environmental Peacebuilding, and I invite you to check out the rest of the agenda for the other part of the conference, which will be sent to the chat box. As we gather today, there is interpretation both for French speakers as well as the Spanish speaker. So what you think is convenient for you, you can check the interpretation button below and then choose the language that you prefer. Also, while we are starting, there is a code of conduct for this conference, and which will guide our actions and our interaction for the few hours that we have together. The conference anti-harassment and anti-discrimination policy, the link will be sent to the chat so that we can also go through it and it will guide.
I think they were cut, no? You there, Munini?
Yes, I am. The network.
Fakun, it's not us, no? It's him.
Yeah, Aremu's network. Let's see if he gets back. Aremu, are you there? Okay, dropped.
I'm back.
Sorry, my network dropped. I'm back. I'm back. So today we have three great speakers that we discussed, that we have the dialogue with today. We have the person of Mumini, we have Samisho and Daniel. But before we continue, I would like to read the biography of each of our speakers so that we'll be able to, we can carry each other along. I will start with Samisho Mitizi. Samisho Mitizi is an environmental lawyer and deputy director at the Zimbabwe Environmental Law Association. He is also the outgoing global coordinator of the Kimberley Process Civil Service Society Coalition that monitors the trade of conflict dialogue around the world. He holds a master's in law in constitutional and human rights law from Midland State University. He's also a bachelor. He also holds a Bachelor of Law honors degree from University of Zimbabwe and a certificate in environmental law from the IUCN Graduate Environmental Law Program. Samisho is registered with the High Court of Zimbabwe as a legal practitioner, notary public, and conveyance. He has over 19 years of working experience in the environmental and natural resource sector. He has extensive research and advocacy skills on environmental law, responsible sourcing, diamond mining, human rights, water resource management, intellectual property rights, and farmers' rights. Then I move to the next speaker, who is Mumini Mutuku. Mumini Mutuku has for the past 16 years worked with communities facing challenges of marginalization and resource-based conflict. Mumini is a member of Bosch Alumni Network and the African Director at the Environmental Peacebuilding Association. She is a fellow of Alliance for Historical Dialogue and Accountability from Columbia University, New York, and also a fellow of the Pan-African Reconciliation Network with the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. She's a PhD student at Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies at the University of Nairobi. She works with the National Cohesion and Integration Commission in Kenya. She is currently engaged in themes related to gender, peace building, environment, transitional justice, mediation, human rights, among others in the field of social justice. Our third speaker is Daniel. Daniel Ruiz is an affiliate researcher at the Scuola Superiore Sant'Anton di Pisa, Italy. He focuses his multidisciplinary research on the complex crises of the Anthropocene, particularly those related to the planetary boundaries, the availability of energy, and the socio-economic inequality. He holds a PhD degree in peace and conflict studies, a master's degree in sociology, and another one in international relations, as well as bachelor's degree in engineering. He has recently retired as political director of the United Nations, where he has worked for 25 years in field mission to several countries like DRC, Haiti, Somalia, Nigeria, Cameroon border, Guinea-Bissau, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Bosnia-Herzegovina. He has consistently included environmental, natural resources, land property, and heritage angles in its peace building efforts, such as the protection of the Virunga National Park, land grabbing and trafficking of conflict minerals in the DRC, trafficking of cocaine in Guinea-Bissau, and of fish in Somalia, the restoration of the Mesopotamian marches and the influence of oil companies in Iraq, and the restoration of religious building in BHI. These are the profile of our speakers today. They are well loaded with experience in the topic, and we are glad to have them on board. Our participants will learn a lot from them. And after their presentations, there will be question and answer. Feel free to ask your question, put it in the chat box. So as we proceed, I want each of our discussants to formally introduce themselves by telling us more where they work, what they currently do. So I will start with the single ladies among us. Mumini, can you start? Thank you. Introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Aremu. As he says, my name is Munini Mutuku, and I'm currently in Kenya. I'm calling in from Nairobi, working with the National Cohesion Integration Commission, like he said. But I would like to highlight the fact that I'm working on within the projects of transitional justice and trying to understand how do we bring in the environmental component within transitional justice? Because most of the time when transitional justice institutions and processes sit and try to address post-conflict or post-authoritarian issues, environmental issues are either mentioned in passing. We really don't get into the real issue and address the nitty-gritties of what is affecting the continent in terms of natural resource-based conflict. So that is something, a discussion I'm passionate about and I would like to continue having. And yes, it's what is driving me today. Thank you, Aremu.
Thank you, Mumini. Thank you. Nice to have you with us today. Then we'll move to our next discussant, Daniel Ruiz. Can you introduce yourself to the audience? Thank you.
I'm Daniel Ruiz. As you mentioned, I'm doing research at the University of Pisa. My main topic is the combination of the upcoming crisis of the environment related to the planetary boundaries, connected to the energy crisis that is just starting, and we can see how the prices of energy are rising, and then the increasing social crisis of inequality, with money being stacked in secrecy jurisdiction, and the populations all around the world becoming poorer and poorer. I don't know, I had prepared a presentation on the situation in the Congo, which is the last country where I have worked, where I have experience. I don't know if I should present it now or in another moment. What,
okay,
Fakunde?
Yes, you can do that briefly now. Why we
Okay,
go to
then I can
Italian.
put the presentation. 1 second. I can't find it now. 1 second. That's here. So I have studied. Can you see it now? The presentation.
It's coming up.
Is it
It's
clear?
yet to show, but it's coming up.
I leave it like
Okay.
this, or should I make it larger?
No, don't make it larger.
Okay, okay. So I've studied the case of the Democratic Republic of Congo with the theoretical framework of the world system theory, in which you have three groups of country: the core, that are the powerful countries, the rich countries; the periphery, which are the ones that are exploited and have been under colonization until recently; and then the semi-periphery, which are countries that pass from one side to the other. We could mention the BRICS, like Brazil, South Africa, China, which in my opinion has already passed to the core. And how these relations are, where the periphery provides cheap labor and raw materials for the core, and the core provides high-cost consumer goods for the periphery. We can see here a map that I think is outdated. As I mentioned, China should be already in the core of countries in the core, semi-periphery and periphery. So the Congo has had a long story of being part of the periphery. In pre-colonial times, slaves were taken from the Congo to America. Then the awful period of the Congo Free State under Leopold II, where the population was maimed with where the hands cut to be obliged to do forced labor, and half the population died during that short period. Then the period of the Belgian colony, where the minerals were taken away against some infrastructure, some technology, but the violence continued. Unfortunately, after independence, things have not become better. The first prime minister was assassinated with the support of Western intelligence agencies, and then President Mobutu was put in place, as we see here, with American officials. Mobutu was removed by the Kabila clan, which we can see in the last photo. But he continued with the same kind of, or even worse, corrupt practices. And we can see him here with one of his business mates, Dan Gertler from Israel, who we won't get into details, but is one of the persons that has been in business with it. I won't be long because I don't have much time, but the three main resources that the Congo is providing for the energy transition at a global level is cobalt, which is necessary for batteries, and DRC produces 70% of the cobalt in the world, with much of it done by artisanal miners. Another significant resource that the Congo provides is coltan and gold, that are essential for electronic, and it is these two minerals that are the main driver of the conflict in the East. In fact, you can see mines in the lower map. You see mines And in the upper map, you see armed groups, and you see how they coincide, because in fact, it is these mines that are that are financing the armed groups. Finally, something exceptional also in the Congo is the possibility of building the largest power station, hydroelectric power station in the world that could provide electricity for most of Africa, and it is a subject of a geopolitical dispute by core countries. Of course, the victims of this situation are the population, which has one of the lowest human development index in the world, ramping corruption, conflict with 120 armed groups active in Congo, IDPs, refugees, practical slavery of artisanal miners, and of course, environmental destruction. Who are the perpetrators? We saw them before: national oligarchies, multinational companies, international banks that are accomplices to all of this, and core countries consumer that demand cheap energy to continue living well in the core countries. What policy recommendations can we deduct from all this? The economy and the population worldwide need to degrow. We need a cosmopolitan governance to manage all these ungoverned spaces, and eventually a solution could be a United Nations Parliamentary Assembly. And the present capitalist mode of power and core periphery system should change. Theoretical implications, well, we see that the world system theoretical framework is useful to analyze the situation. And we should analyze also the system of structural power around the world to resolve the problem of the core periphery confrontation. I don't want to be longer. I think I have spoken enough. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I'll move to our next speaker, Samiso Mitsi. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Shamiso Mtisi. I'm the Deputy Director at the Zimbabwe Environmental Law Association. I'm also the outgoing Kimberley Process Civil Society Coalition Coordinator. My work has, over the years, evolved around working on conflict diamonds, in particular under the Kimberley Process Civil Society Coalition, which monitors the trade of diamonds around the world. And we are talking of more than 80 countries where our work is supposed to pan out. And the 80 countries are members of the Kimberley Process, which seeks to curb trade in conflict diamonds. So I've dealt with quite a number of countries and situations around the world related to conflict diamonds. In particular, I'm resident here in Zimbabwe, so it's a situation that is important for me to inform you about, in particular in terms of the human rights violations that often take place in the diamond mining sector. We have dealt with the cases of environmental damage through pollution of rivers in a river system called Sawe, and then another one called Ozi, by diamond mining companies. And we've also dealt at KP level with another situation in Angola and DRC, where a company, a diamond mining in Angola, discharged effluent into rivers, which ultimately affected communities in DRC, with a lot of people having died as a result of the contamination of the rivers in DRC. And this is a transboundary environmental damage case which we have raised at the level of the Kimberley process. And we are talking about corporate responsibility as well, where multinational companies, and in this case, Katoka mine, which is jointly owned by the Angolan government and the Russian-based Alrosa, are not taking adequate environmental rehabilitation standards as well as due diligence measures to curb any cases of environmental damage. Then we have had also situations in Lesotho, for example, where companies are displacing local communities, and there is a constant threat from dams that may at any time collapse and affect the livelihoods of communities in Lesotho. We have also dealt with other environmental related cases in Sierra Leone. We've also dealt with other human rights situations where private security would beat local communities and workers at a mine site in Tanzania, Petra Diamonds in this case. Those are the kind of situations that we have dealt with, and I've been involved in those situations in terms of collecting data and information and reporting to the Kimberley process. We've also done quite a lot of work here in Zimbabwe as the Zimbabwe Environmental Law Association related to wildlife management and how mining, for example, affects protected areas, and how the Chinese actually encroaching into national parks for purposes of mining coal. So we've dealt with such cases, and these are cases that often result in conflict. So for us, we have seen that there is a great link between transitional justice, natural resources management, and conflict, and in particular peace building. Because when we talk about natural resources, these are the major source of wealth, and it sustain economies and is a source of livelihood. So any poor distribution of benefits or deprivation can lead to conflict, definitely. So this is something that we have dealt with, and we are alive to. In terms of the other piece of work that I do within the Kimberley process, you might all be aware that the Kimberley process was formed to curb trade of rough diamonds that were being used by rebel movements and their allies to finance conflicts aimed at undermining legitimate government. And as described by the United Nations, you might want to know that the Kimberley process was created by the United Nations Security Council through various resolutions to make sure that the trade in conflict diamonds, which has been a serious international concern, leading to armed conflict through the activities of rebel movement, was resulting in human rights violations, disturbance to peace and security. So the Kimberley process was formed within that context. And it's because of the wars that were taking place in Angola, DRC, Liberia, Sierra Leone. There's a long history of conflicts in the diamond mining sector. And this is a long history that we still seized with in terms of some of the problems that we are faced with in the sector. But one of the key things I also wanted to highlight is that conflicts in the diamond mining sector are and African Republic, where conflict diamonds are coming from. So in that respect, in Central African Republic, we have monitored the situation where mercenaries, for example, and other actors, including armed groups, have been out controlling diamond mining sites, killing people, and beating people, including killing aid. And that we have noted in Central African Republic, where conflict diamonds are being traded. Then the other thing to take note of in the line of work that I do, conflict. As I described earlier, the issue of environmental damage, for example, is one of the issues that the Kimberley process has not dealt with adequately, because it has failed to expand the definition of conflict diamond to include situations where diamond mining or exploitation results in human rights abuses. It might be the abuse of the rights of workers, the environmental damage, displacement of communities, or systematic or widespread water pollution, as happened in Angola and DRC. Then also poor management of diamond revenues. That also even includes situations where diamonds may lead to terrorist financing and illicit financial flows. All those things are not tackled adequately by the Kimberley process. So this is a major problem that we've faced, and we have been calling on the Kimberley process to make sure that it's alive and expand the conflict diamond definition to include situations of systematic and widespread violence and human rights violations in the sector. Then the other thing to take note of is the fact that the perpetrators or the actors that cause conflict in the diamond mining sector are no longer just the rebel movements, but we are talking about state actors, including armed groups, including state police, including the military, and in some cases, the companies themselves that have been causing a lot of environmental damage. So they become complicit in human rights violations. In some cases as well, we have noted a situation where private companies or the private security guards would beat up people, be involved in displacement of local communities, or be at the center of violence, as the case of Tanzania Petra diamonds that I earlier on referred to. And we've also seen a failure by companies to adopt responsible sourcing measures. These are some of the problems, but I think in terms of some of the actions that are key in addressing these problems, I think redefining the meaning of conflict diamonds can actually help in addressing situations of violence and in promoting peace and security in those areas where diamond mining is taking place. And we've also recommended adoption of responsible sourcing measures by companies, be they state-owned companies or private multinational companies, and the need for them to carry out due diligence measures for purposes of assessing their potential impact on local communities or on the rights of people. So I think it's important also to use the traditional peace-building initiatives. I think the case of Rwanda, for example, the Gachicha system and other measures can actually be replicated across the continent in terms of trying to help in peace building. And then also adoption and implementation of different policies and legislation might help. Then lastly, I would also even refer to some ongoing efforts to adopt, to assess the possibility or feasibility of adopting an environmental rights treaty or protocol in Africa, which is being led by the World Resources Institute or the Access Initiative. And that might definitely help in terms of promoting peace, security, as well as environmental rights in Africa. So I will stop there and wait for any further questions that might have.
Thank you very much. Shamisu, that is a comprehensive discussion. If you have any question for speakers, you can write it in the chat box, then we'll take it up from there. Now, as we move to the next discussion, there is an extensive work. An extensive work was carried out by Mumini on through African Union Transitional Justice on Environment and Natural Resources in Transitional Justice Process and Mechanism. A lot of dialogue took place, and she was able to come up with some recommendation as well as supplementary notes. I'll call on Mumini now to share the parts, because it's so much that because of our time, we share part of the supplementary note with our audience, and then we'll discuss around it. Thank you, Mumi.
Thank you very much, Shamiso, and Aremu. Sorry, thank you, Aremu, and also thanks to Daniel and Shamiso for that presentation, those presentations, and for those points that you have raised. And I must indicate that what you have spoken to is actually an ongoing discussion. You're talking about countries that are in conflict, and especially because of the resources, and largely the resources that are very economically viable, talking about diamond, gold, and others. And following our discussion last year, where we were talking about the same issues, we were asking ourselves, what can be done about this? And one of the things we reckon is that the African Union has come up with a transitional justice policy to help these countries that you're talking about transition from conflict into peace and stability. But the question was, where is the environmental aspect, where is the natural resource aspect within this transitional justice policy that they have developed? And when you look at it, it is quite minimum, if I say, and it's largely uncaptured in reference to what is happening within the continent. And so we came up with some recommendations or principles, if you like, that will inform or that are part of the discussion to help us understand and to help us continue to question, to help us continue to implement the transitional justice policies in light of the fact that there are natural resources involved. So the spirit of this supplementary note to the African Union Transitional Justice Policy on environment and natural resources in transitional justice policies and mechanisms is the spirit of protection. And protection is not only for the African continent and the people, or the continents and the regions that are suffering from environment and natural resource abuse and degradation and crimes. It's for everyone. It's for multinational companies. Shamiso mentioned them, and also Daniel mentioned them in the presentation. We all have a responsibility to protection, which is moral and legal. It is a spirit of promotion, promoting a healthy environment, and also promoting responsible access and use of the natural resources that exist. It's a spirit of participation. We want people to participate within these processes that seek to move societies from conflict into stability. And we want people to participate in transitional justice processes. These are the regions. There are communities that live within these regions. There are people who live within the continents that are affected by these atrocities. Their participation will inform the processes that try to seek justice. It's a spirit of recovery. We are currently talking about the damage that is being caused by climate change, but we reckon that we are, as a human race, we are actively destroying the very environment that we are saying should be protected from climate change. So we're saying we need to recover from damage and crimes and abuses that are deliberate by the human race, but also recover from climate change. And lastly, I must say it's a spirit of partnership. Transitional justice processes cannot do this alone. Neither can communities do this alone. Governments may not do this alone, but the partnership that comes from the three of them and more, even the multinational companies and other actors within these environments, is the spirit that will help us address the issues at hand. In short, it's a call to stop the active destruction of the very environment and natural resources that we have amidst the climate change that we are talking about, amidst human rights violations that are going on. It's a call to be conscious of the fact that our own environments, our own natural resources are part of the societies and part of us as well. So the question is, what are these principles that are being proposed? The supplementary note is proposing 9 principles that will enrich the discussion. And these principles are not final. They are living, they are progressive. We are saying that any process that is trying to help society transition or that is being involved in post-conflict development and reconstruction should consider the environment and natural resources as victims of conflict and war. as beneficiaries of the transitional justice process and as subjects of rights. That is principle number one. Secondly, they should consider the human victims of post-conflict environment and natural resource abuse and crimes as environmental victims. They should ensure that transitional justice processes and mechanisms are designed to embrace post-conflict environmental and natural resource abuse and crimes. These issues should not be neglected. They should be addressed within these processes, because as we stabilize societies that have gone through destruction, either through conflict or even by active extraction of minerals by multinational companies, we're saying the people are affected, and we're saying that these processes need not put a blind eye, but they need to hold someone accountable. Some institution needs to be held accountable for the damage, so that there is recovery, so that there is restoration of the environment. Another principle is promote the consideration of environmental and natural resource aspects in peace agreements. We have seen the South Sudan peace agreement has been quite progressive when it looks at environmental issues and natural resource issues. But when you look at former agreements in the past, they were not as cautious, or they were not as detailed and as deliberate. So we're saying we want deliberate inclusion of provisions that look into this aspect. Strengthen post-conflict peace processes to ensure that the right to live in a healthy environment is achieved. Again, we are proposing a principle: prioritize the rehabilitation, the restoration, remediation, and conservation of the environment and its natural resources. We have seen this done under the UNDP project that was looking at the Ogoni people's issue, where there was a lot of damage to the environment because of the oil spill, a process that is still ongoing. Again, we are saying we should take transitional justice processes should take into account environment and natural resource atrocities that violate economic, social, and cultural rights. Most of the communities that we're talking about rely on the environment for their livelihoods, for water, for pasture. And once this is damaged, someone needs to be held accountable, or it needs to be restored, it needs to be rehabilitated. And that needs to come from the transitional justice processes. Entrench post-conflict environmental and natural resource assessment in post-conflict needs assessment processes. And lastly, formulate post-conflict reconstruction and development policies and programs that promote sustainable protection of the environment. In short, we are saying we can no longer ignore the environment and natural resource issues within transitional justice processes. Daniel has talked about Congo. If Congo starts a transitional justice process, we cannot ignore the issue of environment and the natural resources. Shamiso talked about the poisoning of rivers. Transitional justice processes cannot ignore that abuse, those atrocities, because they eventually affect the very environment where we are sending the people back to. We have seen explosive devices that have been used in conflict still exploding even today after our conflict has long gone stopped. The cleaning of that environment should have been a process undertaken within the transitional justice process, or the mechanisms that took up the peace agreement or the recommendations that were given within that process. Lastly, these are not principles that are cast on stone. This is a discussion that is ongoing, and these are principles that are living, that we want to encourage a discussion about, and we want to encourage we as peace actors and as actors within the environmental peace practice and transitional justice practice to consider as we set up transitional justice processes and as we help societies transition from conflict and war and other atrocities that have happened. Thank you so much, Aremu. I appreciate for the time.
Thank you, Munini. Thank you for the presentation. Participants, if you have questions for our speakers, feel free to write it in the chat box and we'll take it up from there. There is a question from to Mini and it has been answered. Someone asked for the link to the supplementary note and it has been answered that watch out for it on the website of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association. The website link has been sent to the chat box for us to be able to see. Then there is a question for Shamiso. Do you have a link to further information on regional Africa agreement you mentioned at the end of your talk? That question is for Shamiso.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Florence. So the work that I mentioned is still ongoing. It's an assessment that we carried out in Africa related to the feasibility of adopting an environmental rights treaty or protocol in Africa. So we are still in the early stages. The first report is out, but not yet circulated publicly. But I'm sure if I discuss with colleagues at WRI, we might be able to share, I think in due time, the results of that assessment. So I think this is something that will definitely be shared as soon as possible. So basically, just to give context as well, you might be aware that in Latin America and the Caribbean, they adopted a regional agreement on access to information, public participation, and justice in environmental matters. So it's basically the same kind of approach that we are looking at in terms of trying to do something for the African region, in particular looking at whether it is possible to come up with an environmental rights protocol for Africa. It might be a protocol related to stating out the procedural environmental rights and possibly include here and there some substantive rights when it comes to environmental matters. And definitely this will help when it comes to peace building, environmental peace building in the region, if the African countries are agreeable to adoption of such a treaty or such a protocol.
Thank you, Shamiso. Thank you. I hope you, audience, they got the information. Then, based on what all the speakers have mentioned, transitional justice is very key for the sustainability of our environment and maintenance of peace, to build peace at all levels, either downstream or upstreams. And it is evident, like what Daniel said in Congo, what Mini said in Ogoni, in Nigeria, whereby multinational comes to the country in the name of investment and doing all kinds of hate, but in the long run, they left more residues, harmful residues to the environment than the method, and it caused a lot of havoc. For instance, as Muni mentioned, in Ogoni land, the Niger deltas of Nigeria, the lot has happened, the biomass, the ecosystems damage due to the oil exploration, which actually was like a boom, oil boom for Nigeria in the early years, but now it has led to displacement of people and their community, loss of livelihood. Last year, in part of Ghana, they discovered that there are some Chinese companies that were exploring gold, mining gold in the jungles, and maybe the government were aware, maybe they were not aware, I don't know. But when the water bodies was contaminated, was destroyed, that was when the people were able to know. Then they trace it to the jungles and discover a lot of havoc that has happened. And it takes millions and millions to recover and restore such environment. that will lead me to a question. Now, a lot is happening in developing countries, in Africa, some Latin America, and the rest. What limitations and opportunity exist with the current legal framework or the approach that we have been using and the knowledge that exists for conflict and environmental management? Any of the speakers can take it up. What do you think? What are the limitations and what are the opportunities that we can explore based on the
Lost.
We are being. Thank you. We go first.
Can
Okay,
I
Daniel,
start?
thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
I didn't hear all your comments because you were cut, but also listening to the other presenters, I think that there is one aspect that the international practice is forgetting to take into account in all these transitional justice processes, which is power. We're talking about the economy, we're talking about politics, we're talking about international relations, we're talking about conflict, but we're not talking about power, which is what is above all these processes. I'll give you a very clear example for Chamiso. Why is the price of diamonds what it is? Is a completely artificial process of monopoly of a small number of companies that is holding the diamonds and keeping the prices of the diamonds very high. Why, another example that is not from Africa, but will be very clear for everyone. Why is the value of a Facebook company the value that it has? It's completely artificial. It's just because it is a multinational that has a lot of power. Because in fact, it doesn't sell anything. It's hot air, doesn't have anything. So it's a question of power. And I think that we need to put power in everything that we look at. Because the propaganda of the multinational companies is that they are investing, that they are creating jobs, that they are creating wealth. And in fact, the only thing that they are doing is imposing their power to weak countries, which are the countries of the periphery, to increase their own power. So I think the aspect of power is being hidden on purpose, I think, because all these processes in the end are led by the core countries, by the governments and the multinationals, and they want to hide what they really are seeking. It's not even money, it's power. And for this, I think that we should include in all our theoretical framework studies on power. And I think that the first one that started with it was Susan Strange, when she wondered, why did the Soviet Union fall? And why was there this enormous change process in the Soviet Union? I would also mention this book that I put in my last page of my presentation, Capital as Power, is an interpretation different from the liberals and different from the Marxists, and it's an interpretation of what capital is from a power point of view. And I think that would be a good progress to go ahead and to avoid justifying conflicts and abuses with the excuse of creating wealth and jobs. Thank you. Sorry for being so long.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you. Mumini?
Hello?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Chamiso.
Yeah, thank you. Just to add on to what Daniel has said, and he has clearly indicated that the issue of power and wealth in this case is quite important, especially in the diamond mining sector. where we have observed that the reason why existing legal frameworks and approaches, as well as policies within the Kimberley process, are not working, mainly because of the interest of particular states, as well as the interest of the big companies that are in the operating in the diamond mining sector. For example, India will tell you that we don't want any redefinition of conflict diamond, which includes the environment, human rights, and other issues, because the Kimberley process is a trade issue. So they are interested in trade, they are interested in money, and not even the social costs of diamond mining, be it the environment, the workers' rights, and things like that. So it's because of that reason that India is actually opposed to any redefinition of what constitutes a conflict diamond. It's because of power, it's because of money, it's because of the interests of the companies that are getting diamonds on the cheap from African countries and then exporting those rough diamonds to India for cutting and polishing. So that's what we have within the context of why it is very difficult even for any movement to reform the current instrument, which is the KP Core document. And then the other thing that is quite surprised, surprised us somehow, last week here in Zimbabwe, we have been hammering this Chinese companies for failing to adhere to national legislation, for failing to carry out environmental impact assessments, and also for displacing local communities and generally violating the rights of workers. So they came out and said, civil society, you are accusing us, but you are also not pointing out the weaknesses of your government, because it is the government that is not enforcing legislation. It is the government that is not implementing legislation when it comes to environmental management standards, and that it is also the government that is not monitoring. So it means the Chinese are also challenging the government indirectly, of course, to do more. And you referred to the situation in Ghana. I think there isn't a good culture of human rights standards in China when they are operating in particular political context, or when they are viewed as the favored investor, such as the example here in Zimbabwe, where the Chinese are preferred than any other investor in terms of allocation of mining rights. And then they end up not even adhering to environmental standards. Sometimes it's because of the inaction by government officials not to enforce the existing laws. And then even the Chinese would also claim that they have power from the president or such other political actors, so nothing will happen to them. So as a result, they just run roughshod over everything else, disregard and violate the rights of local communities. But I think as we move forward, one of the key things to take note of relates to how the companies themselves can adopt workable, voluntary of course, but workable responsible sourcing standards, be it customization of the OECD standards, be it the initiative on responsible mineral assurance, doing self-assessments in that respect on their potential impact on local communities and the environment. Those kind of approaches may also work, but in the long term, it's important to make sure that they are legally binding in a sense. We can start on a voluntary note, but in the end, it's important to slowly couch them into national legislation so that they are legally enforceable. So this is something that is quite important when it comes to looking at legislative frameworks. Their implementation is very, very key. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you. What I can add is that we also have a lack of coordinated effort and thread of justice. For instance, if a company is registered in, and just to mention, someone said not all companies or multinationals are evil. It's true. Some are not as bad. Some are actually doing what they are supposed to do. remember the one who does the human rights violations, the story goes out, or the story goes out while the one who's doing the good, the story sometimes is rarely told. In Swahili, there's a saying that says, one spoiled one makes the entire crop smell so bad, you'll think the entire basket of apples is spoiled, but it's only one that is spoiled. So when one is doing the atrocities, the narrative tends to spoil the name of all of them. But I was talking about the lack of coordinated effort and thread of justice. When a company, for instance, maybe it's registered in Kenya, goes to Uganda, violates the rights of the people, evicts them, poisons their water, and the Ugandans are complaining about it. What is Kenya doing about that company that is registered here? Secondly, when they get their complaints. Secondly, when the company violates in Uganda, and the people are complaining about it, what can the Ugandan government do about this company that's coming from a foreign place that is actually coming to violate the rights of the people there? So the gaps in that, and also the tedious processes of trying to go through a judicial process in holding some of these actors accountable, whether they are multinational companies or African companies. Communities may not have the energy, the effort, and the resources to actually follow through and see that justice is done. That is one challenge we have. And like Shamiso has said, when talking about India, is also the fragmentation that we have at the international arena. Because when India says that, what are the other countries that are seated in that Kimberley saying? Some are for it, some are against it, despite the fact that the reality of what you're saying is evident, and the violations that we are talking about are evident. So that fragmentation and failure or gap in speaking with one voice when it comes to the rights, environmental rights and human rights, is also a challenge that we are seeing that is affecting the protection of environment and natural resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the speakers. You have given a very valid point on the current issue going on in transitional justice across different parts of Africa and the developing countries. And the funniest thing is that these issues are becoming rampant on a yearly basis in different parts of the world. And with the degradation of the environment as a result of climate change and other factors, we have a lot to do as peace builder, environmental peace builder, to work with the CSO, private sector, as well as the policy maker. We have been able to see that power is very important. I'm amazed to hear from Shamiso Mubini exactly that is what is happening in Nigeria, whereby a foreign company is, engaging locals for work, particular work, and what they cannot do in their country, they are doing it to the indigenes. And the indigenes could not talk. If we always have some people that we want to challenge or to enforce in doing that, some of this for rising up and talking for attention and a lot of work to. What do you think we can do for our decision makers to be able to reduce the bureaucracy in enforcing the necessary legislations that can make things to work? We know that it's a long journey, a long way to get, but we can start from somewhere. African Union has head of African state, and are these leaders not seeing what is happening? Can they do something, even if it's just to start the process while the next generation continue to build on it? What do you think can be done? Being in policy process in Nigeria, I've been privileged to sit with the major decision makers in Nigeria in negotiation with foreign partners, foreign investors, and the rest. And one thing I've discovered is that while this negotiation is going on, some of our leaders that has the right and the position to make things right in the necessary document that we are signing, some don't even look at it from that angle. What they are after is just to sign the document, letter of agreement, then what is coming in, without looking at the integrity of the document. What do you think can be done in making our leaders, decision maker, to get things right? Thank you. Anyone can start?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what Daniel is saying, power. Who has the power to do what? Because even these leaders, Daniel's presentation at the beginning showed us the leaders who have been killed for standing up for certain things against foreign actors. Who has the power, and what is the relationship between the one who has the power, who's coming in, and the leader who's expected to do certain things? We also need to reckon that they cannot work by themselves. They also need support from elsewhere, from the international society, and also from the communities that they serve. Environmental activism has been a challenging field because leaders, persons have been attacked, killed for standing against environmental destruction and natural resource extraction that's abusive to the environment. And those are realities that these leaders also live with. So that is one aspect. I'm not saying that they should not take responsibility, read the documents, sign them, and do all these things. But we also need to reckon that there are certain forces that need to be addressed while we lay the burden on the leaders as well. Another thing that I would say is also the values. As a human race, as a human person, even running a company, what are my values? If I cannot do the destruction I am seeing, and what Shamisha was saying, people being forced into labor and not being paid, if I cannot do that to my own children, why would I allow a company to do that to someone else's children or another population in another place? So it also comes down to what are our human values as a human being. And as a leader, leading a multinational company or any outfit that is going to access environment, natural resources, or access the environment where another human being is living, what are my values and what would I want to see happen that will be, whose reputation comes back to me? If I don't care about that, I will do anything. We have seen great atrocities done by people who had certain ideologies, who are driven by certain, understandings about Africa and who the people are. Are they human, Black people this, Black people that, or even Asia, where certain ideologies about who these people are, they demean them. And so for that reason, they are able to justify they are doing what they are doing. So that's another arena we also need to go back to and ask, what are the values that are driving these actors? What are the values that are driving these companies as they come in? And also for the leaders, what is the position where they are placed in so that they can act the way they act? But that doesn't, again, justify them not acting and not taking responsibility. My take. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mumini. Daniel.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's not just Africa, it's the whole world. In the last 30, 40 years, humanity has been under the influence of an economic theory that, in fact, for me is more than an economic theory, is a religion, is a theocratic thing, is a theologic thing, which is neoliberalism, which puts money above anything. And the people who have power are followers of this religion. In whatever continent they are, they can be Christian, Muslim, doesn't matter. The believers in neoliberalism, which is full of dogmas, like the fact that the economy can grow infinitely in a small planet like the Earth, that believe in invisible hands that move the economy and that balance the economy, that think that markets are going to balance everything, including the destruction of the environment. I think it's a question of religion, and we need a new religion. Human beings are too ignorant to stick just on facts and on science. So we need a religion, but it must be the right religion. It cannot be the religion of destruction and neoliberalism. We need an environmental religion that will guide us all, politicians, leaders of companies, citizens, etc. I think that is very important. Until we don't do that, we will continue destroying everything, destroying our fellow human beings and destroying the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Hello.
Yes, hello, we can hear you.
Yes, I wanted to talk about what the issue of policymakers, what they can do or what can be done. But for me, I think it is important that we start having this conversation again around the link between natural resources, so that those who be part of policymakers, especially at legislative level or at parliament level, including being ministers, people who naturally have a heart for the environment, and they have the interest of the heart. And this might actually trigger political will. It's about political will as well, in terms of that environmental peace building is sustained in the different countries in which from which we come from. And I think it's also about the politics. This reminds me of some work that we did at some time back around legislative environmental representation, where we were assessing what a member of parliament, for example, would say to his or her constituents related to the environment, related to natural resources in the political manifesto, or what a political party says in its manifesto. That definitely will define how those people or those who are elected will then behave once in government or once they become policymakers. So it means we need to look at that. What are the political parties promising? Because if we don't elect the right people, then we are not likely to have environmental peace building promoted. We are not easily likely to have that kind of situation. So I think that's another component that we have to look at: elections and natural resources, or the politics of natural resources. What happens? Who are the champions? Is there political will to implement and then enforce environmental rights or human rights in the natural resources sector? So that's another angle that we have to look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have some questions on the chat box. Someone asks Munini if there are resources on environmental peace building related to South Sudan, and if MPAS is included, environmental peace building activities is included in United Nations mission to South Sudan and Burundi.
Sorry, Aremu, we lost
religion.
you, but
yeah. Can you hear me? Okay,
now we can hear you.
Now?
Now we can
Yes,
hear you, but we lost you. I only got my question on South Sudan and the Environmental Peacebuilding Association and the South Sudan process. We didn't get the other one.
Okay, and if I have to follow up with the work, I mean the inspiring work of the speakers, you know, how to get in touch with some of the other works that all the speakers are doing. Hello, are you there?
Okay, yes,
Yes,
we are here, we can hear you. There are resources also about South Sudan. The Environmental Peacebuilding has quite a library. Carl is here, and Carl and Tim are here. They can actually help you access that. You just need to send an email to them and they will assist. And again, if they are involved in the South Sudan mission, I am not sure. But from where we sit as transitional justice practitioners, even within the Pan-African Reconciliation Network, South Sudan is a question of interest, especially because of the oil drilling that's going on and the damage it's causing and the birth defects and all that. And we would like to see these environmental issues included. And the principles that I talked about are some of the principles that we can pick out to help the process look at environmental issues within that environment. So it would be good if we could keep in touch and continue with the discussion, sure. I will leave the other questions for the other speakers.
Thank you, Minnie. Just a bit to add to what you have said, Environmental Peacebuilding Association is actually, it has a global coverage, and any of the participants that is interested to join, to be part of the association, you are free. The link have been shared earlier on, and maybe to be shared again, so that you can go through the website and see how to be part of it. And from there, you can take what we are doing to your country in case if it is not yet captured. If it is captured, I mean, if we have environmental peace builder already in your country, you can now build a strong synergy and network and see how things can go on from there. Thank you. I move to Daniel. Hello, Dan.
Yes. Are you speaking to me?
There are some questions as related to the growth, cosmopolitan governance, and religion.
Yes. Well, what was I think the question was there. And chance to include here institutional provisions that entails aspects of the growth and cosmopolitan governance. Talking about the beginning. Well, I think that I mentioned before, we cannot continue growing the economy and the population infinitely, exponentially, in fact, in a finite planet. We are probably approaching a collapse of human civilization. Because of the overshoot. We have structures that are based on an enormous use of energy that we cannot sustain, and it's very likely that at some point it will collapse. Let's take an example. 200 years ago, before we started using fossil fuels, there was 1 billion human beings in the planet. Right now, thanks to fossil fuels, we are 8 billion. We have already passed the peak oil and the peak fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are starting to become more and more expensive. We're not going to be able to sustain this level of population and this level of consumption and production for a long time. So it's very likely it will collapse. So we have to degrow. It's not an ideology. It's that we will grow. We will degrow by force. It will happen. So it's better that we start getting ready for it. And about cosmopolitan governance, the powerful people in the world, those who are taking advantage of all what we have seen in this conference, be it natural resources or human beings used as slaves in mines, they are not interested to have certain spaces of the world governed. For example, the jungles in Africa where they are exploiting minerals and oil. For example, the oceans, and to go back to Africa, you can see how the enormous fishing fleets are pillaging the fish in Somalia or the Gulf of Guinea. The space is not governed, the conflicts are not governed. So you need some level of multinational cosmopolitan governance that will control that. Climate change is not governed. That's why we cannot reach an agreement, because there's not this super national entity that will be able to rule that. Diamonds are not governed. So we need that level of governance. Of course, we run the risk to have a multinational or a global tyranny. And to avoid that, we need to have a parliament that will give legitimacy to this government. And there is a movement already ongoing of creating a United Nations Parliament, not a General Assembly that represents the governments, a parliament that will be elected by universal suffrage by every single citizen of planet Earth, which nowadays is not very complex. With internet, you can do that very easily. So these are the two comments that I wanted to do on degrowth and on cosmopolitan governance. I hope that I have answered to your expectations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you. So, the question from the last questions lead me to peace building is in a multi-diverse in approach, and it takes everybody from management to pure sciences to health. Is also very key for the source of what we are experiencing. But in Africa, in India, and other developing countries, what do you think can be done to increase the awareness of these two fields and participation of more institutions and scholars from the developing countries? What do you think can be done? Because if more people are aware, more people are involved, more people are informed, then a cumulative action by everyone will go a long way to achieving the goal and the objective of the two sectors. What can be done to increase the awareness of environmental peace building in Africa and other developing countries, as well as
maybe I can take that first, and I'm sure others can add. I think one of the key things has already been mentioned by Daniel, the power of the internet connection or different platforms when he was referring to establishment of a United Nations Parliament of sorts. I think if you look at it, if we manage to harness and use different social media platforms that have connected people in the context of COVID, you will find that a lot of people are connected now, and we need to use the social media platforms or the different platforms of social media to inform the public about environmental peace building. Because often what happens if you are tracking certain conflicts, environmental conflicts, in a particular context, it might be a village, or it might be a country or a district in a particular country, you are likely to have information quickly or expeditiously sent out to the general public out there. And if such platforms can be used to track, monitor, and also document or even receive and package information from different angles, that might definitely increase environmental peace building awareness. So I think we have to harness and use as the different social media platforms to spread the word. And then also even research information from universities should actually be shared. I know that there are repositories of information from different universities. Others are piloting different ways of disseminating information. If they can be upscaled, I think that might also be quite helpful. And the other element that I'm thinking of is maybe sponsoring some courses on environmental peace building at certain or specific universities. That might also help in a sense. So those are the three ideas that I'm thinking of right
Thank you
now.
very much. Thank you very much. As we are gradually approaching the end of the discussion, we'd like to hear from any of the speakers briefly. Thank you.
Okay. From my end, I want to believe there's quite some work going on at various local levels. It's just that most of the time, the people who are doing it don't call it environmental peace building. But if they were to share what they were doing, you'd actually say, this is actually it, environmental peace building, cooperation on matters, environment and natural resources for us to build peace. So we need more visibility of what is going on. And we also need to hear from the community level, what are they doing and how do they do it that can feed into the field of environmental peace building. And that means there's quite some indigenous knowledge that needs to be made visible so that we also, within the field of environment and peace building, can also understand what is going on at the ground level, and they can also understand what we are doing at the academic and at the policy level. So there needs to be that exchange of knowledge and awareness. And I must say as well that there is a certain momentum that has been set up by the climate change discussion, because climate change is also coming with its own challenges, threat multiplier in terms of conflicts that are related to natural resources and environmental issues. So the momentum is there. The question is also, how do we take advantage of the momentum to bring up what is actually going on at the community level? And like Shamiso has says, using the social platforms that are already available is a good platform, is a good way to go about it, amongst others. Thank you.
Thank you.
I may continue.
Yes.
Building on what Munini was saying, I think it's important to connect the local with the global. That's a little bit what I have tried to do in my presentation. And also at the horizontal level, the forces of evil, to call them somehow, of this diabolic religion of neoliberalism, are systematically trying to trick us. Now the last trick, just because oil is becoming more expensive, all of a sudden they have become environmental. They're no longer investing in oil, which is not so profitable any longer. They're investing in windmills. And they're trying to speak only about climate change. If you see now all the research that is being financed is about only climate change, not on other environmental threats, not on other social threats. So we must be very careful, and we must be very careful of the private money, where it goes and what it does, and very skeptical about it, and be not just to look vertically from the global, from the local to the global, but also horizontally on all aspects of the environment, on all social aspects and all energy aspects, because in the end, the economy is about energy. It's just about that. But we need to connect dots and not to be excessively specialist, which is what they are trying us to do, so that we know a lot about one single thing, but we don't connect the dots. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, speakers. Thank you, all the participants, for your time. As we round up this discussion, keynotes to take: exchange of knowledge is very important for us. If you are doing something somewhere and we are not able to share it with the global audience or a larger audience, the knowledge might die with us. But when we share it out, just like as Environmental Peacebuilding Association, organize this session whereby we are able to rub mind together, we're able to share and discuss, know what is happening. And through the chat box, you could see that several organizations are doing different things. Just as Daniel said, bringing the knot together will go a long way to help us in achieving the goal that we are looking at. We appreciate everyone. Thank you, Carl, for the leading the association, and any of the participants that is interested in being member of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association, check it online, check the website. The website is on Google, just type it there. You will see the website and you see different means of how you can come in and participate and scale up the environmental peace building activities that you have been doing. So we thank every one of us. We have come to the end of today's discussion. And as a reminder, this is just part of the second International Environmental Peacebuilding Association conference that is going on. We still have other sections. We check the agenda that have been shared on the chat box. You can see several other similar sections that you can participate, network, and learn for. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Munini. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Shamiso, for your contribution and your discussion.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.